What's good, folks, family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth, to another episode of Disguise Coverage, the only podcast that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin, presented by the best pizza in Buffalo, New York, and that is One Pie Pizza. Find the online menu in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you're listening to this show on. I'm your host, Anthony Prohaska. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro 2_ANT. Find me on Blue Sky at ProAnt, no underscores there, just PROANT. In this edition of Disguise Coverage, we will be diving into the start of free agency for the Buffalo Bills, the activity, maybe also the lack of activity, moves that they could have made but didn't, contracts that were dished out to some potential really good fits on paper for the Buffalo Bills, that just unfortunately for whatever reason that we'll talk about and dive into didn't fall their way. They did make some moves. We have the DJ Moore trade. They brought back Connor McGovern. They brought in corner Dee Alford from the Atlanta Falcons, but we'll be diving into all of those details as we go in throughout this episode. And from an activity standpoint, right? And I just listed the moves. The DJ Moore trade has been talked about ad nauseum at this point because it was done last week. We can talk about Connor McGovern, but I think a lot of folks just know what Connor McGovern is. We'll talk about Dee Alford a little bit in this episode to kind of break that piece down. But I really want to focus a lot of this episode, as we do here on the show. This show is very engagement based with the live chat, questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, likes, dislikes, frustrations, anything and everything you folks got. That's how we operate normally and regularly on the show, but even more so at times like this where there is a lot of, happenings going on around the league or with the Bills or maybe not. So anything you folks got on your mind, again, questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, likes, dislikes, philosophies, ideologies, maxims, theorems, whatever you folks got, feel free to put it into the chat tonight. We'll make this episode as engaging as possible. As always, super chats get priority because I respect the monetary donation. And the color distracts me and takes me away from my notes. But yeah, we'll talk about some activities, some lack thereof, and then really make this, as engagement focused as we can to let everybody kind of vent, talk about some things, spur some conversation, and we'll go forward here. This is one of the few episodes I've done the past several years where Kendall Mursky has not been my guest on this show. I blame him for the lack of activity because every time we do this show on this Tuesday night, it's usually some kind of breaking news happens as we go. It was Joey Bosa last year. It was Von Miller several years before that. So let's really kind of just get at Kendall for not being unable to join me tonight. And I think that's probably jinxed the lack of moves for the Buffalo Bills. To start with some pieces from the chat. K. Amori, you know me too well. K. Amori says, a sad day for Ant. No Roy Lopez, no Leo Chenal. Maybe next year. I give up on Roy Lopez. And I will say this. I kind of want to use this. I'll use this kind of preface everything we're to go through in this episode tonight, right? And I say this as a person who, again, folks who regularly watch and listen to the show, I've spoken a lot about my frustrations with Brandon Beane, not just this year or this offseason, but in totality. My thoughts about Sean McDermott going and how Beane essentially should have gone with him out the door. Yes, I recognize that, we don't want Terry Pagula running the ship and making the decisions. So I get it that it's better to still have Beane there so he can steer things instead of having Pagula. But I have a lot of frustrations when it comes to Brandon Beane and just kind of the decisions about this roster the past several years. The contracts that they've given out, the decisions they've made. And again, things are tied to McDermott and Beane. I thought they were both culpable. They both had their hands bloody. But I want to use this comment from K. Amori because, yeah, I really wanted Roy Lopez. I really wanted Leo Chenal, Caden Ellis. We're going to go through a lot of guys I had on my list that I thought were affordable for the Bills. They ended up being affordable based on the contracts that they were given out. But I want to preface all of this by saying, even if the Bills were flush with cash, right, which we know they're not, we know that it's going to take some finagling to get some deals done and some cleverness with the salaries and the cap hits and all that stuff, right? There are a multitude of variables that go into guys signing a contract, right? And I'll use Roy Lopez for this example, right? I wanted it for multiple years now. He ended up going back to Arizona this offseason. He signed a 2-year, $11.5 million deal with $7 million guaranteed. Maybe the Bills offered him that same contract and he said, you know what? I want to go back to Arizona. Maybe they offered him more and he said, you know what? No, thanks. I really want to go back to Arizona. Maybe they didn't offer him at all. Maybe they offered him and lowballed him, or any one of, more scenarios that could have happened. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. So, and I use that phrase a lot in life. And so just because they didn't sign, again, we'll use this example, just because the Bills didn't sign Roy Lopez doesn't mean that they didn't try to sign Roy Lopez, right? But it doesn't mean they didn't try. Doesn't mean they did and they had a better offer. It doesn't mean a lot of things, right? Just because they didn't sign him, there's a whole plethora of variables that go into it. And that goes into any deal, right? Any of these moves, anybody that you wanted the Bills to sign, trade for this year, last year, anything and everything. Just because the deals didn't get done doesn't mean the Bills tried. Doesn't mean they gave their best effort or they made the right move. No. Doesn't mean they tried at all. No. So I always like to reinforce that and put that around there because I think a lot of times when people don't see the move get done, they just think, well, they're sitting on their hands. They're not doing anything. And I don't think that's the case. I think most teams, including the Bills, who we know kick the tires on almost anything and everything year after year, I do think they're trying to make moves. They're just, for whatever reason, not getting them done. Maybe they're waiting for the Trey Hendrickson shoe to drop, which we'll talk about in this episode. So again, I say this as a person who is frustrated with Brandon Beane. I'm not saying this to give him a pass or make an excuse or give the benefit of the doubt, but there are a multitude of variables that go into a signing, right? And it's not just the money and the term you present, it's how the player feels. Does the player want to go to that organization? Does he feel like he's a good fit? Does he want to go to a different city for different weather, or is he from a different area? Brian Cook is a good example, right? The safety from Kansas City. He ended up signing with the Cincinnati Bengals. He played college ball at Cincinnati. Maybe he just wanted to go back home, for him, quote unquote. Maybe that's where he wanted to be. Saw the opportunity, saw some money. Cool. Maybe the Bills offered him the same deal or offered him more. And he said, no, I want to go back to Cincinnati. And so he went back to Cincinnati. There's a multitude of pieces that go into everything. But yeah, definitely a sad day. For me, I thought that I didn't think the Roy Lopez move was a guarantee. I thought it made a ton of sense, as you know. But I really thought Leo Chenal was a slam dunk. Like, I thought it was either him or Caden Ellis. I've said it on multiple shows on the network, on other appearances I've made outside the network. I thought getting Caden Ellis or Leo Chenal was an absolute must. Not a skill set like them, not a player like them. I thought it was an absolute must to get Leo Chenal or Caden Ellis. And I thought Leo Chenal, again, was close to a slam dunk. I didn't think he was going to be too expensive, which he wasn't. Chenal ended up signing a 3-year, $24.75 million deal with the Commanders. I thought he would want to play for Leonard. I thought Leonard would want him. He made a ton of sense for what they needed at linebacker. He would give them so much versatility and add to the hybridized nature of the front and being able to maximize Leonard's scheme, but they didn't get him either. And we're going to talk about, again, all of these moves that they could have made, but didn't as we go forward in this episode. But I wanted to lead off with that because, yeah, Cam Moore, you know me too well. I am frustrated on the defensive side of the ball, to say the least. Jason saying some of the contracts were quote unquote good players, but not what I would consider consistent difference makers is too much for my blood in our situation. Let the teams with a lot of cap room overpay. I think it's a fair assessment. I think there are some guys who are, kind of getting a little too much, but for me, and again, I'm going to get into it later. Like, I didn't think the contracts are the guys that I really wanted, right? Like Roy Lopez, Leo Chenal, Caden Ellis, Kobe Bryant, Kobe Bryant, Brian Cook, Jalen Thompson, especially, even Kyrus Tonga. David Onyemata got, 1 year, $10.5 million deal. That's an average annual value of 10.5 because it's a 1 year. I thought that was a little high for what he was going to get, but I understood. I still would have paid it to him. John Franklin Myers got paid big time in free agency, but I never really considered him or put him on my list because I thought he was going to get paid. So I kind of compartmentalized him. I do think there are some overpayings happening, but the guys that I really wanted, I wanted them because of their skill set and scheme fit, but also because of what I thought their contract projections would be. So for me individually, it's frustrating to see them not get the guys I wanted and then see them sign contracts that I thought is what they were going to sign and I thought would be in the Bills' wheelhouse. But very fair point. Jason, comment here. Thoughts on Max Crosby's failed trade? Weird. I just want to see what's going on. Rumors or not rumors, reports are coming out that he failed his physical, but did he actually fail his physical or did the Ravens get cold feet and they just tried to flag anything and use that as an example of like, oh, nope, he's got he stubbed his toe. We don't like it. Failed the physical, but we can't do the trade. Did they back out at the last minute? Did they not like the feel of it or the sense of it? And now where does Crosby go now? We know the Bills were in that mix for Max Crosby. We know the Raiders, according to some reports, chose the Ravens deal because of how more attractive their first round pick was this year. The Bills' first round pick is toward the end of the first round. We know the Bears were involved, but they've kind of, I mean, no deal is set in stone right now because it's still Tuesday, right? Wednesday is when everything goes into effect when the new league year starts. But the Bears weren't in there. I believe the Cowboys weren't in there. But the Bears have made significant moves. Do the Bears back out of those agreements now and try and shoot for Max Crosby? I would love that because does that put Kobe Bryant back on the market and the Bills can get him at safety? Do the Bills go harder for Max Crosby now? But the Cowboys' first round picks were more attractive. So do the Cowboys reinsert themselves back into the conversation? I think it's really interesting. I'm not excited, but I'm interested to see what the details are that come out about why this thing really failed. Was it the Ravens really pulling out? Did he truly fail his physical? Just you wouldn't expect to see a failed physical. So I want to know what's going on there. Is there some gamesmanship by the Ravens? Why would there be? Again, they pulled this trigger and now they're trying to put the cat back in the bag. Really interesting. Alex says, my thoughts are we made some solid moves. However, I see teams going quote unquote all in. And in my opinion, we are not. Get that man out of Cincinnati and in a Bills uniform ASAP. I'm assuming you mean Trey Hendrickson. There are some rumors there. We will see. We will see. Jason says, I like resigning McGovern over Edwards and not paying New Orleans money to keep him. Yeah, David Edwards got paid big time. Good for him. He got 4 years, $61.5 million. I don't know the exact guarantees. Again, everything for contracts is rumored because nothing's official as of this point for these true free agents. But yeah, he was on the Bills. I believe he first came for like a 1 year, $2.5 million or $3 million deal. And then he re-signed on a 2 year, $6 million deal. So he was here the past couple of years making about $3 million a season, which is obviously still really good. And now he goes to New Orleans where, he's making, he's got 4 years and he's making $61 million total, which is a nice little bump there for him in terms of average annual value. So yeah, shout out to him. And then Jason says a couple pay cuts where replacement level would be worse than keeping Knox and Bass. And Alford seems necessary and fine. Yeah, we're going to talk about Dee Alford. Necessary and fine, I think is a really good way to put it. Really good way to put it. And yeah, Knox, we talked about Knox here on the show. Like he just couldn't stay at that cap hit and that salary. I thought he was a necessary part of the offense in the tight end room because he is a bridge between Dalton Kincaid and Jackson Hawes. He's a bridge between both of their skill sets and who they are and what they are and how they can be used. Plus, we know Dalton Kincaid's availability and injury history continues to be a thing year after year. He just couldn't stay at that contract. So looks like they, an extension and hopefully comes with a pay cut and a lowering in that regard. And then Bass, yeah, he didn't really have any leverage. I don't think Knox had any leverage either. Good on the Bills for doing that. His spin says, yeah, Max Crosby back to the Raiders. Bills have another shot at it. They do. We'll see how real the medical concerns are. We'll see if maybe do the Raiders have less leverage now and maybe they don't get 2 firsts for Max Crosby. Maybe teams try to game them up a little bit in the trade market. Yeah, and again, I wonder, does Dallas go hard? Does Chicago want to back out of some of the things they've agreed to and now go hard for Max Crosby? We will see. We will see. Charles says, sup, Amp. Any big news to talk about tonight? Yeah, kind of not really for the Bills. Maybe some other things. Again, as I'm going through the chat here, if there is anything that breaks, flood it into the chat. You folks broke the news to me and Kendall last year about Joey Bosa as the show was going on. So feel free to put anything and everything into the chat. I'm going back and reading through everything from you folks from a conversation standpoint. Then we'll get into my notes and we'll go from there. RJ says, I would give up a 2026 first and a 2027 third for Max. Yeah, I think Max Crosby's awesome. I'm a little torn on just the only risk with someone like Crosby for the Bills and even Trey Hendrickson in that regard, right? I know, I guess we'll talk about this now since we're having this kind of conversation a little bit. Like, and I know there's a lot of rumors floating around about the Bills being in on Trey Hendrickson. and kind of this idea of like, oh, maybe they're sitting back, biding their time, waiting to hear about Trey Hendrickson, and then they'll go from there. Um, and I get that notion. I think it's fair. My only worry with like going all in as much with for the Bills going all in, given the financial and draft capital resources they have, going all in for either of those guys is kind of similar to the Von Miller decision a couple years ago, which worked until Von Miller got hurt. But again, if you put all your eggs into one basket and that basket breaks it all, you're screwed. Which again is what is my main hang up on the DJ Moore trade. Like, I think DJ Moore is a fine player. I didn't like having to give up a second for him, and I didn't like all the financial commitment that you have to give for him. Like, it has an opportunity cost for other moves you could have made. And I do think there are a multitude of needs and upgrades that this team needs, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So if you're sinking a lot of resources into one guy or a few guys, that's fine. But those dudes have to stay the course. And we saw what happened with Von Miller, right? They put all their eggs into the Von Miller basket, and that basket looked great. And then all of a sudden, that basket tore its ACL, and that defense fell apart. So we'll see. Yeah, Spin is saying, yeah, Crosby had a meniscus tear and not a trim. I guess whatever that means, and he failed the physical with the Ravens. Yeah, but I don't know how. You have plenty of guys who have like off-season surgery, so I don't know if there's validity to it. Like, did the meniscus surgery go wrong? Did the Ravens doctor see something they legitimately didn't like, or did they want to flag something just to flag something? Is Crosby's knee jacked up? Does he need another procedure? Is he fine? It's just weird. Like, we see off-season deals happen all the time, or off-season surgeries happen all the time, and no one's really ever worse for wear, and this type of scenario doesn't really happen. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what comes out, what gets leaked, and how each side wants to leak it, right? The Raiders are going to leak stuff. Crosby's camp is going to leak stuff. The Ravens camp is going to leak stuff. It'll be interesting. Jason says, I don't want any big committal new contracts on defense until next year. And we see the change in scheme and what we truly need. Fair, but you do need certain players or certain skill sets, body types, and roles to maximize this Bills defense. And we can play that game and say, like, hey, we don't want any big contracts on defense until next year, which is fine. But you still need to address the defense this year, even just from having bodies on the roster. Like, even if everything stayed the same, they don't have enough bodies on defense to play defense. Like, I mean, in theory, they do, but not good bodies or the right bodies. They need to add people defensively, and then even more so because of the scheme change. And the guys I wanted, I didn't think, and nobody was a big committal from a new contract defensively, like Kobe Bryant, Jalen Thompson. Brian Cook got $18 million guaranteed in his first year, which is a lot. So maybe that throws things off a little bit, but I didn't think Chanel's deal was crazy. Ellis got a little more than I thought at $11 million per year, 3 years, 33 mil. But again, I don't think that's a big committal or anything out of range. But we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, Spin says Chanel went to the Commanders. Big bummer. I agree. What else? Jason says, I blame Kendall for anything I can blame him for as well, even if it has nothing to do with him. My food got burned. I blame Kendall. My electric bill higher than I thought. I blame Kendall. I'm going to end up screenshotting this and sending that to him later. That's funny. Charles says, while other teams out there throwing around fun coupons and free agency, Bean is playing 4D chess, waiting for the Crosby deal to fall through to pounce. Yeah, maybe he is. Maybe he is. Again, or even in seriousness, like, the thought is like they're going to go for Trey Hendrickson. And so they're like, okay, instead of getting 3 B level signings, we're going to try and go for 1 A minus. And who knows, we'll see. I think, there are some concerns with Hendrickson just from an injury standpoint now, but I get that notion of maybe going for a bigger fish. But again, nothing can happen to that big fish, which is what worries me. But we'll see. We'll see. Comment here about Jordan Hancock. I think Hancock just needs more snaps. He'll settle in. I'm iffy on Jordan Hancock. I didn't see anything that, on tape last year that made me go like, oh, this is the guy. Like, a lot of promise. Let's give him more snaps and time on task. Could he get better? Absolutely. I'm just much, much, much more comfortable with him being a depth guy at this point, whether it's the nickel or whether it's the safety. I mean, Granted, Jordan Poyer knows the system, and we know how much McDermott loves guys that he trusts and are responsible. But the fact that they went with Poyer, who didn't really have any legs left, granted, he played well, or better than I thought, I should say. The fact that they went with Poyer regularly and only used Hancock in certain instances and situations, I think that's telling for Poyer, but also for Hancock in a negative way for Hancock. Um, but we'll see. Yeah, I'm not. I think Hancock's a fine depth guy as of this moment. I'm not ready to give him a starting spot as of now. Charles says between the age, injuries, and scheme fit, I'm not too interested in Hendrickson. Yeah, I think that's also an issue too, right? Like if you are obviously in the four down even front stuff, boom, it works. But if you're trying to do odd front stuff, are you going to drop him into coverage? Like how comfortable is he with that? You've got him and Groot. Like Groot can drop actually into coverage like pretty decently or better than you would think. But you've got two edges or defensive ends, however you want to label it, but you've got two edges in odd front looks where neither are really like a strong coverage player. So neither are really would be true hybrid edges. So how does that limit you a little bit, right? Like it's not like if you're going to the Steelers, for example, under Dick LeBeau, right? You had like James Harrison and Joey Porter, and it was like, okay, these guys are nasty against the run and nasty as pass rushers, but they can drop a little bit. They're more like outside linebackers playing as edges. Hendrickson and Rousseau would both be two true edges or two true defensive ends. And kind of going for there. And as RJ says, it's tough because the Bills need so much just to be functional this season, and they have almost no cap space left. Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy. Oh, we got a super chat. I got to go through. I got to stop. Padden, I appreciate you being here, as always. I knew where this was going. Padden says, if backing out of trades is the thing, then anything is possible. Looks like hashtag Edgemonds is back on the menu, boys. Have a fun few days. And I appreciate you, Padden. Thank you for lighting the mood. I knew where that was going. Well done. Well played. It might be back on the menu. That's super funny. Oh, while I'm here, Jason says, is that a Tiffany lamp? It is. I'm horrible with this. Yeah, it is a Tiffany lamp. It belonged to my grandmother. So I keep it there. Good call. Good eye. Hold on. We gotta go back. Okay, I'm back to where the chat kept going. Charles says, I think the contract I liked most for the Bills to match was Alohi Gilman. And of course, he goes to Kansas City with Spags. I was lukewarm on Gilman. I think he got 3 years, 24 million, something like that. So super affordable. I just didn't really like him like that. Reed Blankenship got decently paid as well. I think Reed, I think he got 2 years, 24 million. 3 years, 24 million. Yeah, so he got an $8 million deal. If it was between like Blankenship and Gilman, I would have rather given Reed Blankenship that money. He goes to Houston now and solidifies the safety spot next to Kalen Bullock, which is cool. I would rather give that money to Blankenship than Gilman. I get your like for Gilman. There's a lot of people who like Gilman. He's meh for me, but I would have taken her at this point, seeing where they are now. What else? Oh, question here. What do you think is more important, big time rusher or filling out other holes in the defense? And do you think both are possible this offseason? Oh, really great question. Ooh, I I'm I'm always a quality over quantity guy with it within certain levels. Um, I do think the Bills need a true edge one rusher off the edge to pair with Greg Rousseau. I'm going to keep saying it. Greg Rousseau is more of a Robin than he is a Batman as a pass rusher. So you either got to get a Batman or you got to get another Robin or you got to get a Nightwing and a Robin, something like that, right? I think with where the Bills currently stand, I think they need more quantity, right? Like you need a starting safety. Even just in this defense, right? But again, a lot of these holes needed to be filled, even if Sean McDermott and the rest of the defensive crew stayed from last year, right? But you need a starting safety. You need a starting linebacker next to Bernard. You need a starting edge. You also need a third and a fourth edge, depending on how you feel about Javon Solomon. You need another nose tackle. Like it can't just be Deion Walker and Fedarian Mathis. Like that doesn't work for me, at least. I think you need a starting 4-eye. Sebastian Joseph Day is out there. I think still go get Sebastian Joseph Day. You can't have your starting 4-eyes be like, let's talk about the interior defensive line right now, right? Like if we're looking at the three known quantities from last year of Ed Oliver, TJ Sanders, Deion Walker, right? You can't have a starting interior and an odd front of Ed Oliver at a 4-eye, Deion Walker at nose, TJ Sanders at a 4-eye. You can't rock with that. You got to have somebody's got to start ahead of TJ Sanders at 4-eye. Now, you could sign a 4-eye, right? It could be Sebastian Joseph Day. Cool. Or you could have Deion Walker be your starting 4-eye, and you could sign two noses, or you could sign a nose to work in rotation with Walker, let that nose eat the run defense snaps. I think Walker can play nose. I don't think he should full time. He's not built to stop the run inside. He can penetrate, he can move, he can do fun stuff. But let's get a true nose in there to be a stone in the center of the defense, and let's let Walker move around in different spots and be used as the fun kind of unicorn bear that he is. But I just don't think he's built to play the ugly downs regularly on the run, play the early downs against the run on the interior and gum things up. Everything's going to have to be penetration based or movement based, which again is part of what Jim Leonard does, and it can work. It's just very risk reward, and you can get caught out. And I want to have as much variability as possible. I want to be able to play rock, paper, scissors and be able to throw rock, paper, and scissors. But the interior defensive line needs starters in some capacity and depth. The edge grouping needs a starter and depth. Safety needs a starter and depth. Linebacker needs a starter and depth, because right now you've only got Dorian and Bernard, and I don't think Dorian is ready to be a full-time starter yet. So for me right now, the answer is both. If I had to pick, I'd fill out the other holes in the defense. I don't think both are possible. I don't think they can get a big time rusher and fill out the other holes in the defense. You'd have to really hope the draft board falls your way. And now that you don't have a second round pick, that's even harder. So now you have to trade back. You'd have to trade back from your first round pick at pick 26, try and get a third or recoup a second, try and figure something else out. There's just a lot of moving parts to be able to make both happen and have everything fall the right way. And so I right now for me, I think it's more important to fill out the other holes on defense. Question here from Mohammed M6. What type of linebacker and corners would fit best in the 3-4 scheme on defense in terms of body type, etc.? In terms of linebacker, if we're talking inside, you know what Bernard is: coverage, small, not built to take on blocks, right? So you need somebody next to him who's capable of some downhill thump, right? Somebody who can play next to him in an odd front and rush, play the A gap, play the B gap, take on a block, deconstruct a block, match with some offensive linemen, meet the fullback. Somebody who's capable, again, of playing downhill, stacking, shedding, or deconstructing a block, a physical downhill presence at that interior spot. Now, again, ideally, which is part of why I liked Chenal and Ellis, you could get somebody like them at that spot. And then they could also, in your sub package looks, could play defensive end or edge in your 4-down stuff, which would be fun. Or they could also kick down as the end man on the line of scrimmage in an odd front and rush, or, play the run. There was just so much fun there. And I think that's where it starts. Like you need hybridized players at linebacker, whether it's in the interior or on the edge. If you're talking outside linebacker or your edges, you need guys who are capable of winning as rushers, playing the run, and who can also drop in coverage a little bit. So you need some combination of, speed, athleticism, change of direction, some bend, some pass rush moves, some physicality, because they have to wear multiple hats. And then at the inside linebacker spot, again, they've got to be able to cover a little bit still, but you need somebody who can play coming forward, ideally to pair with Terrell Bernard. And, but again, isn't going to be completely lost in coverage. That's my biggest gripe with Dorian. Like, I think Dorian is still a guy who gets lost in coverage too often for my liking. He can answer that downhill thump aspect, but I think he gets lost in coverage a little too much for me still. But yeah, in terms of body type, skill set, etc., you need versatility. You need hybridized type of players, right? You need guys who can wear multiple hats. Is he blitzing? Is he dropping into coverage? Can he beat a guy one-on-one as a pass rusher? Can he jump and dart inside, right? Can he hold the edge and play the run? Can this guy get downhill as an inside linebacker and fill anywhere from the A gap to the C gap type of deal? So you need, pieces like that. Again, versatility from the linebackers versatility. Corners, for Jim Leonard at least, I think you need guys who can play some match coverage and play some man coverage. So it's not pure zone corners. I think you need some guys who can play man and who can play match. So again, ideally, you need athleticism there. You need some juice. You need some semblance of physicality. You need the ability to stay sticky to guys and stay in their back pocket. And that could be because your technique is great or because you have great recovery speed or your feet are great, like Max Hairston, things like that. Um, I think corner is decently answered at the top, right? I think Benford and Hairston lock them in as your two starters. You're fine, right? You can play man, you can play zone, you can play some match stuff, you can do some press, you can do some true press, some soft shoe type of stuff and mirroring. I think there's a lot of things they can get after with their top two corners. But I really think it starts with a corner. It's just athleticism and being able to play a little bit of everything, some man, some match coverage, and some zone. And then linebacker, you need hybrid guys, versatility, all that kind of stuff. Chris says, "What's the plan? What's the linebacker plan now? All in on the draft, I guess. Uh, just sure, tough. You have to really hope things fall your way. As at this point, again, there are still. Let me go and see what linebackers are still out there. I mean, you could go with Dre Greenlaw. You could go with Jermaine Pratt. You could bring Shaq Thompson back. I believe these guys are all still on the list or you haven't signed. Those would be my top options right now. You're either looking at, I would look at Jermaine Pratt, maybe even Bobby Okereke, but I look at Jermaine Pratt, I look at Dre Greenlaw, or Shaq Thompson. Jack Sanborn, maybe, but I like him more as a depth guy than a starter next to Bernard. So I think you go for more of a vet on a short-term deal and then hope the draft falls your way. And maybe you are going with CJ Allen from Georgia. Maybe you are going with Trotter from Missouri, or one of the other backers that you got there. But you still have to answer safety, so safety's muddy as well. Yeah, it's tough. Derek with the Fat Joe quote, yesterday's price is not today's price. Well done. Well done. Big time objective says, could they bring Bosa back on the right deal? Sure. I just don't think he's a good fit now with what they want to do defensively. He's again more of a straight edge defensive end, power compression type of guy. I think you need someone with a little more versatility on the outside, a little more bend, a little more fluidity, a little more juice, someone who can drop into coverage but still get after it in the run and the pass. So for me, I don't think he's the right fit, given the new direction of the defense. Grab both these. Tristan says, would have preferred the Dobbs deal and keeping the second. Amicus as King says, second round pick isn't a guaranteed playmaker. DJ Moore is. Yeah, I was going to talk about this later, and I will talk about it more in depth, but I'll answer it here on the question now. I would have, just for the deals that were handed out, like with what Dobbs got, I believe there was a whole bunch of different reports for Romeo Dobbs, but the biggest one was 4 years, 80 million. I figured he was going to get around 20 million per year. I would have rather had the Romeo Dobbs deal than the DJ Moore deal. I think DJ Moore is probably the better receiver at this point, though Dobbs can still improve and ascend. For me personally, Dobbs' skill set is one that I just gravitate towards more. Technicality, route running, deception, release package, all that kind of stuff. DJ Moore, I talked about on the show with Nate Tice last week. He wins with athleticism and speed and burst and all that kind of stuff. Though that skill set and those traits don't necessarily age gracefully for a guy. And then having to commit as much money as they did to him, plus the second round pick, everything in totality, and you still need to add a receiver. And you need to add other things on the roster. I just think DJ Moore's contract plus the second round pick prevents you from doing other things. And even though I think Moore is the better receiver, although him and Dobbs are both wide receiver twos to me, I just think to get Dobbs, all you would had to do was give him the money, which is less money than you're giving DJ Moore, and you wouldn't have to give up a draft pick to do it. So I would have rather taken Dobbs and the cheaper contract and kept my draft pick and then made other moves. And yes, second round pick, any draft pick isn't a guarantee of anything. If you told me my options are a second round wide receiver or DJ Moore, I would take DJ Moore. He's a known quantity. I know what he can produce. Even the most sure of sure things in the prospect world are not guaranteed at all. That's why there is no exact science for the draft. So I would take DJ Moore over any draft pick because it's a guarantee. But the deal in totality, I would take Dobbs and the cheaper cost financially and draft capital wise than the deal in totality. If it's just pure player for player in a vacuum, I would gravitate a little more towards Dobbs because I like his skill set and I think he can still go forward. But I think DJ Moore right now is the better receiver. I think he is a good fit for the Bills. The vertical stretch, the horizontal stretch. I just think everything in totality, again, the cost financially and draft capital wise, is what I didn't love. Mm, 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 mm. Jason says, I think we draft a safety. I don't see anyone ready to start week 1 on the roster right now next to Cole Bishop. I want Kevin Byard from Chicago. I think he can work. And you go from there. That's what I'm looking for. Oh, this is cool. Love from London, the UK, by the way. Appreciate you. I'm interested to know what soccer team you support, and I hope it's not Tottenham because last I saw they were getting rocked in Champions League today by the Atletico Madrid. And I don't say that negatively. I'm a Barcelona guy, and I was sweating and stressing the entire afternoon because I thought we were gonna lose to Newcastle after I thought Newcastle was gonna put up goals, and then they eventually scored one, and I was like, all right, you're going back to Camp Nou down 1-0. But they were put through. Bum 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 bum. Question here: with Leo Chenal and Roy Lopez and PJ Lock gone, who do you think can fill those holes? Defensive tackle, I'm looking at DJ Reader. Linebacker, we talked about. I'm looking at Jermaine Pratt. I'm looking at Shaq Thompson. I'm looking at Dre Greenlaw. I would probably lean Pratt over everybody. Pratt, Shaq, then Greenlaw, just because the injury history with Greenlaw. Defensive tackle, I'm looking at DJ Reader. I'd look at Andrew Billings. This again, I'm looking for a space eater role player at this point. Safety, I'm looking at Kevin Byard. That is the top guy for me right now. I think you need more of a free safety presence, more of a post safety, I should say, range based ball hawking type of safety. I think Byard would pair really well with Cole Bishop, just like Byard paired well with Brisker. Brisker and Cole Bishop are very similar players. So instead of getting like Brisker to pair with Crosby and you have two like same, I would rather get Kevin Byard. So that's my top piece right there. Nicholas is watching all these safeties sign for very fair money. Bean must have a clause in Leonard's contract that says he needs to come back and start alongside Bishop. That's funny. That's funny. Good comment here from Jason who says, fill the holes and scheme the pressure. I like that. I like that. Brian says the Buffalo Bills should get some more players during free agency. I agree. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, Jack, being here. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for the super chat. Jack says, what's Bean's plan right now? Doesn't seem to be one. I think that's what's tough with everything. Again, I talked about it a little earlier, like the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence thing. Like, for all we know, Bean could have been in on all these guys that I've mentioned or that anybody's mentioned, right? Bean could have been in on Kobe Bryant, Jalen Thompson, Brian Cook, Roy Lopez, Leo Chenal, Caden Ellis, right? He could have been outbid. He, maybe offered more, but the player didn't want to go there. He could have offered the same and the player decided to go somewhere else. We don't know. I do think Bean is trying. It's just a matter of how good he is at trying and whether or not he's able to execute. I do think there is a plan. It's just a little unfortunate with how it all looks right now. I do think there is some credibility to the idea that they are in seriously on Trey Hendrickson and they know what it's going to cost. So they're kind of biding their time, I guess, which I think is understandable, but I also don't think is a good plan because you're passing up opportunities for other guys these first couple of days and passing up the opportunity to fill other needs that are needs and being able to fill them with good players who are also cost effective at the same time. So you're losing that opportunity and you're still not guaranteeing yourself that you're going to get Trey Hendrickson unless maybe they know already, but according to reports, they don't. And even on top of that, you're still putting all your eggs or a lot of your eggs into one basket. And we've seen that go sideways for this team before. So I think there is a plan. I just don't think it's a good one right now. But again, I don't even think that's necessarily tied to this year. I think it's a culmination of a lot of things, right? It's the dead cap of all these guys that they signed before. It's the void year for Matt Milano this year, and the void year for Larry Ogunjobi, and the void year for Daquan Jones, and signing Dawson Knox to too much of a deal when they did, and maybe being too early with Terrell Bernard, and he's not going to be who you thought he was going to be, and all these moves that just kind of bit them a little bit, and then not drafting the right guys at the right time. Bum, bum, bum. This is a fair comment from Alpha Crow, who says, we've never had defensive end production that has a cost over replacement, meaning there's never been a season where I would have taken the salary we gave over the play we were given. Just get high potential. My only thought with that is, as I do trust Jim Leonard to do a better job of scheming things up, which is why I don't think you necessarily need the big gun or the hired gun, although I would take it. And I do think there is some semblance of need there. But I do trust Jim Leonard to raise the floor from a scheme and structure perspective. But that's a fair point. I like this from Tristan saying, pie in the sky. Hope for me is somebody gives us a nice haul at 26 to move up for Ty Simpson. If someone wants to trade up into the first round and give the Bills like a first and a second, or a second round pick, and something later, I would love that. Or a 2 and a 3, or some kind of something where they can maximize. I don't want to fall too back into the middle of round 2. So if they can get some combo of, hey, you got an early day 2 pick and then another day 2 pick on top of it, I would take that. I would take that. Bum, bum, bum. Oh, comment here from our question. What are you looking forward to more, the defense or the offense this season? I'm looking more forward to the defense because I love Jim Leonard and I've wanted him in Buffalo for years. So I'm looking more forward to the defense schematically and from a Leonard standpoint. I'm not looking forward to the defense from a who's on the field standpoint as of right now. But that's just me. This comment. I just want to hear Ant talk about the stone defensive line archetype. It seems like Bean doesn't want it, so I'm just going to keep talking about it and speaking into the ether until it uh, happens, and I'm just going to keep speaking it into existence. What Roy says, the tree looks a little light for the first time. I'm kind of disappointed. No, the tree is heavy with thick green garland with shamrocks on it. The garland is really thick. I just tried to space it out properly. I'm moving too much. Sorry. The camera went out of focus. I just spaced it out properly because the garland is so big. I didn't want it to overpower the tree. So that's why the spacing is where it is. The garland is thick and heavy. I thought it looked really nice. I thought I spaced it out really good this time instead of having it look too overloaded with garland. But to each their own. Question here about Texas linebacker Anthony Hill. Anthony Hill is falling. What do you think about him? I haven't finished my I haven't really even started the linebacker spot in my evaluation, but I watched him while watching other guys. I didn't like him as much as I hoped. I found him to be a bit heavy-footed. I didn't like some of his eyes and his processing and some of his downhill movement. But again, I have to complete my evaluation on him. But right now, I'm a bit low on him, which was unfortunate. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, Rob says, who's your ideal pick for the first round? Right now, either a defensive lineman or a safety. Again, I'm not finished with um, either position group, but right now it would either be a linebacker, defensive tackle, edge, or a safety. It's tough. Yeah, Eric says still got Joseph Day sitting there. Yes, you do have Sebastian Joseph Day sitting there. I would love that. I would love that. Curtis says cover one might need to add a Sabres branch, 8 in a row. We actually, and I say we, myself included, Adam Stencil, and Chris Kepner. I don't know if you're aware or not. Several years ago, um, we, I forget, I think it was called Playback. It was a platform where we could watch Sabres games live, the three of us, and then have people in the chat and we'd watch them together. So we did cover one Sabres for a little bit. This was back in maybe like 2022, 2023, something around that time. I think those 2 years that season, the 2022, 2023 season. Yeah, we would watch like at least one Sabres game every week or every other week, big games, almost every game whenever we could. It was pretty sweet. It was pretty sweet. Oh, awesome comment from Chris. It says, "We're teaching my almost 7-year-old the Sabres on the Warpath chant. Vibes are high with her." Yeah, I went to the Sabres game Sunday night against the Lightning. It's one of the best experiences I've had in my life from a sporting event standpoint. It's the best hockey game I've ever seen, including live, or obviously live, but the best hockey game I've ever seen. And then, yeah, leaving the arena Sunday night and just hearing all the ooh ah Sabres on the Warpath chants and the energy and the vibes were immaculate. It was awesome. It was awesome. Derek says, "Is it necessary to have a dominant pass rusher in Leonard's scheme, or does the scheme itself produce the pressure along with the body types?" I do think having a dominant rusher helps. But I do think there is a good chunk of there's going to be scheme ability to the pressure, right? The pressure pass that his guys take, the 5-man pressure looks that he brings, the 6-man stuff, but also just the overall spacing, the paths, the simulated pressures, the creepers, the timing of all of it, when he calls them, how he uses them based on formation, based on alignment, based on personnel of the offense, like how he uses them to attack what an offense is doing. So I do think the scheme itself will produce pressure. And I do think having the right body types will unlock that further, even if the right body types aren't attached to an amazing or dominant player. So I do think it is scheme and body type related. And then having a dominant pass rusher would kind of put it over the top. But just, yeah, I think the floor is there. I just want these moves done to raise the floor a little bit and then be able to push this defense towards the ceiling more. That's a really good question. Coming from JG saying, "But we've cried all the time. We need dudes. Too many okay players. Maybe this is him getting a dude." Yeah, fair. Maybe he is going for a dude, but you're getting a dude. Say it's Trey Hendrickson. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. But if you're getting a dude who's got an injury history, right? That's still not sound process. And again, you're in a spot where you're thin, right? It's not just I think the issue, and for me at least, because I'm a person who has said this before, of like they need more top tier players, they need more difference makers, right? The issue is more of the guys that they've drafted and the guys they've signed. They could have drafted a difference maker or a better player than one they took. They could have signed a different player to the same contract that they signed someone else to and had a better result. And I think in this instance now, again, everything is fluid. Sometimes you have to change your philosophy and your approach. I just think with how many holes they have right now, putting most of your eggs into one basket, especially in a basket that's been banged up and broken a little bit the past several years, isn't too sound. It's tough. But, again, if they got Trey Henderson or if they traded for Max Crosby, you got a really good player. That's fine. But if anything happens to those guys, that's really rough. And we've also seen in a Max Crosby example, right? Not that the Bills defense is the Raiders, especially from a scheme and structure standpoint under Leonard, but even some of the talent. But we've seen with Crosby and the Raiders, right, where you have a defense with a super high end player and nothing around him, right? And then, especially if you look at the rest of the defense, right, like Ed Oliver, even when he's healthy, sometimes he disappears, but he's had injury concerns. You've got Michael Hoyt coming back, and you hope he'll be a good version of himself, but you don't really know. TJ Sanders is a question. Deion Walker, I think, is a solid player, but still has some questionable aspects about him. Terrell Bernard has an injury history. Christian Benford has got injured at times. So to take a big swing with this current unit and group, given the questions in the starters and then the question at the holes in the defense from a depth standpoint as well, I just don't think now is the right time to make that big swing. If they do it, I'm not going to hate it, but I could see it. I think I could realistically see it going sideways. If something happens to Hendrickson or Crosby, they're screwed, right? And even with one of those guys, they still need to address a bunch of other stuff. Connor says, "How sick are you about the linebacker market and the Bills not getting any of them? I'm pretty sick right now, and I'm not pleased, but it is what it is." Bum bum bum. RJ says I miss playback so much. It was playback. Okay, I couldn't remember if I said that or not. James says, "Ant, what trade value draft capital would Ray Davis carry now that he was a first team All Pro kick returner?" Ooh, I don't think much. Maybe like a fourth or a fifth. He's a third round running back. You're still, even if, again, being an all pro kick returner, no one's going to give up like a day 2 pick for that. So at best, you're looking at like a fourth or a fifth. because he can also play some running back. I think it would probably be like a fourth at your absolute best, but it'd probably be like a fifth. Tank Ninja says Sonny Styles. Man, if the Bills could get Sonny Styles, I'd be so happy. I'd be so happy. Um, Rob says I've been intrigued with TJ Parker. I wasn't from a broadcast standpoint. That whole Clemson group tanked him, Peter Woods, but I do think there is talent there. Avian Terrell is pretty sweet. Yeah, I'll be getting into that Clemson defensive line as I go forward in my evaluations and try to wrap everything up by draft time. Curtis says the safety from Oregon. Yeah, Dylan Thieneman. I'm more inclined to him now, given the Bills signing Alford at nickel. I do think they're going to use some more big nickel aspect at times. I don't love Thieneman right now, but I think he's a fine player. Ba, 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 ba. Nathan says, I think we're trading down outside of a home run player being there. I do think trade down is a likely target. Trade back, get a third, get a second, try to do something. Bills fan 7883 says you have the 28th least draft value in the NFL with a ton of holes. Trading back from 26 and recouping some draft capital is the smart play. I don't necessarily disagree. This is a good comment here from Bill Benz, who says we need a Robin, Nightwing, Red Hood, and Azrael. Nice pull. Rather than one Batman. I agree. That's my issue, right? Like you can get a Batman, but you still need all this other stuff. So yeah, I think that's really fair from Ben. Again, that's also my philosophy too, right? Ironically, we're talking about the Sabres a little bit. You look like at the 05-06 Sabres or the 06-07 Sabres, right? Back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals. Should have beat Carolina in the 05-06 season if their entire defense didn't get the plague, and then they would have beaten Edmonton for the cup. But I digress. If you look at those two Sabres teams, 05-06 and 06-07, neither of those teams had like a stellar first line, right? But what they did have, like their top three lines, they didn't have a 1, a 2, and a 3. They essentially had 3 2s. And then their fourth line was like a 3.5. It was a mix of a 4, but it really still had some third line capability to it. Like that's my type of philosophy with building any type of team. Yes, I want top tier players. And I do think you need that. But if you are in a spot where you're drafting at the back end year after year, just get as many B plus guys as you can. I think the issue with the Bills is they've had too many B minuses and like C pluses. Granted, they have more B minuses and C pluses where teams usually have like a C minus or a D plus or a D, which is good for the Bills. But it's like, okay, you've got 1A, a couple B pluses, and then some Bs and a bunch of B minuses and C pluses. I think they need to either get a multitude of B pluses or change and get a couple more A's. I think really that the difference has been the lack of top tier talent and or the lack of second tier talent on top of it. But yeah, I like this comment here from Bill in this analogy. We need a Robin, Nightwing, Red Hood, and Azrael. Well done. I appreciate you. Oh, Charles saying fortify the spine. Lee Hunter, Jacob Rodriguez, AJ Halsey. Fair. For those who don't know, Lee Hunter, defensive tackle from Texas Tech. Jacob Rodriguez, linebacker from Texas Tech. AJ Halsey, safety from LSU. Yeah. Where are we? Okay. Okay. I'm gonna still keep going into comments. Have some more free agency discussion. I'm gonna go into some of my notes and my thoughts here. Let's start with Dee Alford, new signing from the Atlanta Falcons. His contract, as of right now, reported by Spot Track, from a breakdown standpoint, 3 years, a $15.75 million base value, $7.875 million guaranteed at signing, $2.2 million more next March, $1.75 million in annual incentives. In practicality, the deal is a 2-year, $11 million contract. So you're essentially getting him for like $5.5 million average annual value, depending on if you're looking at it from a 2 or a 3-year perspective. I think he's a fine nickel. I forget who said it earlier. I think it was Jason in the comments, maybe, that he's necessary and fine. I do think Dee Alford is necessary and fine. He can function in man coverage. He can function in match. He can function in some spot drop zone, some true zone. He's got the ability to match, carry, and deliver. I think he's got good coverage spacing and awareness. He's got very active eyes and a very active head to pick up crossers, pass off guys, carry accordingly, all that type of stuff, right? You'll watch him drop into his zone, see that it's vacated. He gets his eyes across field. Who can I pick up on a crosser or a drag or something underneath? He's quicker than he is fast. I think he has some short area quickness, mainly due to foot speed. He's not a burst or like notable twitch kind of guy. He's not some great change of direction, elite mover, fluid athlete type of guy, but he can close on guys in short area and even, who have some space on him because he's got he's got some good foot speed to him. He's a willing tackler. He looks to pick the ankle or use his shoulder or throw the shoulder, really. He's got a 15.6% career missed tackle rate. Bit of a smaller size and frame that will limit him at the tackle and catch points. I've seen some listings for him, but they're pretty much the same: 5'11", 175, 5'11", 180. And he's change of direction capable. Again, he's not stiff, but he's not explosive. He's not some great athlete, some great mover. His long speed is fine. There's a couple reps where, he's running downfield with Tep McMillan, who's not a burner, but then a rep against the Rams where he's running downfield with Tutu Atwell. Granted, Tutu doesn't really sell anything, and Alford kind of knows he's going deep. But as long as his eyes or his feet don't mislead him, he can function a bit downfield. I saw some of the talk about him, but he is a slot corner based on his career snaps. He's got 1,711 career reps in the slot. He's only got 230 out wide. When he's been used outside as a wide corner, it's really been due to, like, in case of emergency, break glass. Like the Falcons had some injuries at outside corner this past year and didn't have a lot of depth there in general. So Alford would kick outside every now and again. So it's nice that you have a nickel who can also moonlight a bit outside. I think he's more of a outside CB4, maybe a low end CB3. But I think he's a fine, capable nickel. I think this type of move for Alford, who, he's not the run defender Taron Johnson is, or at least Taron Johnson was. But I think this kind of signing and this kind of move indicates that nickel is going to be more of a true sub package for the Buffalo Bills. I don't think they were ever going to be in nickel as much as they were under Sean McDermott the past couple of years, which, again, McDermott started to tweak. They started playing more dime. They started playing more base. But even with dime, you have 6 DBs on the field. I think getting Alford, who, again, is more of a true nickel from a coverage standpoint, I think this speaks to more base defense for the Bills, or maybe more 3 safety looks or something like that, where you're not going to be in nickel a ton, or you're at least not going to ask Alford as the nickel to have a lot of run defense capabilities like they did with Taron Johnson. So I would see nickel as more of a sub package, true sub package, again, for this Bills team, where it's coming in on known passing down and distances or known passing situations, end of the first half, second and long, third and long, things like that, or third down in general, third and medium, depending on the situation and all that type of stuff. So I think the signing of Alford, again, necessary and fine. You need a starting nickel. Jim Leonard is going to play nickel. He is going to have 5 DBs on the field. And I think Alford is a fine nickel from a coverage standpoint. He's not the run fitter that Taron Johnson is. Even if you go back to watch the, Bills versus Falcons, Bills run duo right at him, and Tyrell Shavers inserts and gets into him and just drives him like 4 or 5 yards back immediately. He's not the guy that you want playing the run right there. Like, I don't want him in the box. And sorry if you guys see me moving, I'm trying to fix. There we go. The focus is back in the camera. He's not the guy that you want pulled into the box and acting as like a Sam linebacker, or acting as a, an off-ball guy like Taron Johnson did. And Taron Johnson was good at that. Granted, his play dipped overall, I think, last year, in 2025. So I don't think he's the player coming forward that Taron Johnson was. I think he's got a little more coverage versatility than Taron, especially from a downfield standpoint. Also, maybe a bit more athletic as well than Taron Johnson, but he's not the physical level of player. He's not the box strength or plus player that Taron was, especially in his prime. But he's a fine nickel, right? Necessary, fine. You need somebody in that role. He appears to be well liked by his teammates. Cool, good for him. I don't say that disparagingly, like legitimately cool, good for him. He seems to be really geeked up and pumped to be here. He's your starting nickel. Cool, go for it. Do your thing. Gives you some outside flex if you're in a pinch, if something bad happens. I mentioned it before Alford signed, and really once I saw the Taron Johnson cut, I'm in the favor of the Bills using more of a safety as their nickel in sub package looks. So, if you're going to go in nickel, I like the idea of maybe having a third safety on the field, and your nickel is Cole Bishop, or your nickel could have been Jalen Thompson, or it could be Dylan Thieneman because your starting safeties are Dylan Thieneman and Cole Bishop, something like that, right? I'm interested to see how the Bills use that nickel spot, or who plays the nickel, or who plays, kind of that overhang or that extra defender. Is it a nickel corner? Is it a safety? Is it a linebacker? Going to be tough for linebacker now because of what the market looks like. It would have gone a long way for that conversation if they had gotten Caden Ellis or Leo Chenal or some kind of guys with very versatility and variability to their game. But we'll see now going forward. But yeah, I think Alford is necessary and fine. They didn't break the bank for him. I would have rather taken his money and given it to Roy Lopez. But that's a conversation for another time. Jason, appreciate you being here as always. Thank you for the super chat. Jason says, are we getting Hendrickson or what? A bunch of question marks. Apparently, we'll find out tomorrow. Apparently, Trey Hendrickson is going to make his case known tomorrow. I don't know. And I'm still torn on how much I want it versus how much I don't. If they get him, I won't be upset. If they don't, I won't be upset. It's all going to come down to the money. I just, again, don't like putting all my eggs into one basket really ever, but especially when you have a lot of other baskets that need to be filled, and the Bills have a lot of other baskets that need to be filled. But we'll see what happens. Appreciate you, Charles, in the chat saying no number on the Knox deal yet, but likely saves $6 to $8 million on his on this year's cap. Yeah. Oh, apologies. Because Ryan asked the question: how much was Dawson Knox's contract reduced? Did we get specific numbers? Thank you, Charles, for answering that in the chat. I appreciate you very, very, very much. But yeah, so Alford, fine signing. If you want to see what's up with him, you can find him on my Blue Sky and on my Twitter account. Just go to my page. I put it out last night at like 8ish or something like that. And then retweeted it this morning to get it closer to the top of my page. So find me on Twitter, pro__ant. Find me on Blue Sky at proant. No underscores there, just PROANT. You can see like about a over 2-minute breakdown of, what he does in coverage and why it fits and some things like that. So again, contract isn't crazy, necessary and fine. As somebody said in the chat earlier, again, I believe it was Jason. Kudos to you. If it wasn't you, Jason, forgive me, whoever I stole credit from. But yeah, fine. Connor McGovern. I want to see this. Hold on real quick. MD says a fun conspiracy theory is that Baltimore back-channeled a deal with Hendrickson and backed out of the Crosby deal. Ooh. Drama. James says our years have been voided. Jason says, I think it will be much less than what we think. I believe Hendrickson got a rude awakening in free agency. Coming off the knee injury, he did okay, 4.5 sacks last year, but I think teams are very wary. Fair. I'll take a cheap Trey Hendrickson. Also in free agency, kind of in free agency, but not really. I'm talking about the main ones here. Connor McGovern came back to the Bills, 4-year, $52 million deal that includes $32 million guaranteed. Obviously, that looked a lot better after Tyler Linderbaum signed what was like a 3-year, $80 million contract. It was absolutely crazy. Granted, the Raiders had money to burn, right? So they unfortunately maybe set the market into a tailspin and kind of screwed the market maybe a little bit. But Raiders overpaid because they don't care, because they have a ton of money. And Linderbaum's a great scheme fit for Kubiak's offense and makes a ton of sense to kind of set Fernando Mendoza up for success when they draft him first overall in the draft. But Linderbaum's contract made McGovern's look even better at 4 years, $52 million, $32 million guaranteed. As of right now, I forget that $52 million. I'm saying this like I can't just go look it up right now. If you're looking at that $52 million, it makes him 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th highest paid center in terms of total value. And if you're looking at the average annual value per year, he is 4th behind Cam Jurgens, Creed Humphrey, and Tyler Linderbaum. And if you're looking at the total money guaranteed, he is 1, 2, 3, fifth, again, behind Eric McCoy for the Saints, Cam Jurgens, Creed Humphrey, and Tyler Linderbaum. So got a contract that pretty much locks him into the top five for centers. Good for him. Works in Buffalo, knows the team, likes it here. Apparently, I saw some of the stuff from his presser today that he said he could have had some money elsewhere, but $13 million a year is still really good money, and he wanted to stay here and come back here. So good for him. Cool. We know what he is. Good for him. I was hoping to get either him or Edwards. I would have taken either one. I don't know who I preferred more. I just wanted one of them. I think I preferred McGovern just because I would rather put Alec Anderson at left guard than put Alec Anderson at center. That's what I'm thinking they go with right now. I think it's going to be Deion Dawkins to Alec Anderson to Connor McGovern to Osiris Torrance to Spencer Brown. I am worried about Deion Dawkins this year because I think David Edwards did a lot to kind of buoy him and support him and help him at left tackle just from how smart he is. Edwards, how smart he is, how good he is at IDing the fronts and kind of setting things and communicating. So we'll see if, Alec Anderson or whoever starts at left guard for the Bills, although I think it'll be Anderson. We'll see how well they can fill Edwards' shoes in a vacuum, but also what type of impact it has on Deion Dawkins as well. DJ Moore, again, talked about it last week, but I'm going to add it in here just because it technically counts in this window. Again, reporting for all the contract stuff. Nothing is official as of yet, but essentially the Bills got DJ Moore on a 4-year, $98 million contract. Then it's basically like $24.5 million, 2026, 2027, 2028, 2029. $15.5 million of his 2027 salary becomes fully guaranteed on March 13th of this year. Buffalo can process a full salary conversion on DJ Moore upon acquiring him per Spot Track, which would lower his cap hit to about $6.75 million this year and create about $17.7 million of cap space. With all these restructures that they can do and kind of how they can process the salary conversion, I should say, essentially it'll become like roughly like a 3-year, $63 million deal for DJ Moore. And if you kind of want to play the game a little bit of what the cap hits would look like, it'd be $6.75 million this year, but then 2027 through 2029 could be like $28.9 million each of those seasons. So we'll see what ends up happening there with DJ Moore. And again, trade was a 2nd-round pick from the Bills, which is pick 60 for DJ Moore, and a 5th-round pick from the Bears. Not going to get into it too much again because I broke it down with Nate Tice last week when the news dropped, but I think DJ Moore is now the best receiver on the Bills. I think it's an upgrade. I think his skill set helps stretch the field vertically and horizontally for this Bills offense. I like the athleticism, the juice, and the speed that he brings. I don't like the lack of route running precision and stem work that he has. I like my receivers to have a little more technicality, guys who can separate with technique and deception and good stem work and release packages as opposed to just pure power, burst, explosion, and speed. Because at some point you're not going to be the better athlete, and it's hard to just always be the better athlete and win that battle that way. And from an age standpoint, winning with more of the physical traits like that, those tend to dissipate a little bit more as you get older. Once you start to not be able to throw 98 miles an hour anymore with your fastball, do you have a slider you could throw? Do you have a changeup? Can you work in different pitches? Can you paint the corners a little bit? Stuff like that. And I think there are some questions with that for DJ Moore. And the little, looming thing of, did he quit on the Bears in 2024? He kind of did, like on them as a team, but also like the plays in certain games. So for all of that, again, I mentioned it earlier, if we're kind of keeping apples to apples from a total deal standpoint, I think DJ Moore is the better player than Romeo Doubs. And I would take him, over Doubs. But from a cost standpoint and an opportunity cost standpoint, I would have taken Romeo Doubs and what he cost versus what DJ Moore and he cost. But yeah, I think he fits with this offense. All jokes aside, you can give him some bubble screens, give him some stuff around the line of scrimmage, and he can make some things happen with the ball in his hands. And then he's going to be able to stretch the field vertically. You can push the ball downfield to him. He's actually, pretty good at the catch point, making some off-frame catches. He can go up, get the football a little bit. He can also stretch the field horizontally as well on some crossers, drags, stuff like that. He's just not going to route anybody up. He's not going to win with precision and technicality. You're not going to see some great stem work where he turns a corner inside out. It's more of him just using his athleticism, burst, and speed to beat guys in that way, which again has worked for him thus far. We'll see if it continues to work for him. He is an upgrade at the wide receiver for the Bills. He makes them better. he is their best wide receiver. But I think the deal in totality is what gets me. How much you have to pay him and giving up the second round pick to do so. Not that the second round pick is guaranteed. And yes, before anybody, gets at me, no draft pick is a guarantee. And I would rather have DJ Moore than a second round wide receiver. Okay. Want to put that out there before anyone yells at me. Jason says, I think Dawkins will be okay. He acknowledged that he needs to come in slimmer to be the best version of himself. Yeah, I heard him mention something like that. He's already got something planned to like be the slimmest he's ever been or the leanest he's ever been. So yeah, we'll see. They need him and Spencer Brown to be very effective and just be able to bookend everything and go from there. What else? All right, some of the pieces. Again, I talked about it earlier. I am legitimately disappointed in the Bills not being able to get Caden Ellis or Leo Chenal. I said it before. I thought like they needed guys in that mold from a body type and skill set, role, and play style standpoint. But more importantly, I thought they needed one of those guys, those specific guys. And I really thought they were going to get Chenal. It just made too much sense. His ties to Jim Leonard, how good he was under Leonard, his skill set, how good of a fit he'd be in this defense because he was a good fit in this defense at Wisconsin. Leonard, I would assume, wanted him because of his familiarity with them and how good Chenal was for him in college at Wisconsin. Chenal goes to the Commanders on a 3-year, $24.75 million deal. Right in line with, I thought he would get somewhere around $6 to $8 million a year, but actually, no, I'm lying. I thought he would get somewhere between $7 and $9 million per year, and he came in pretty good in the middle of that, almost exactly, a little more than $8 million per year average annual value. Again, we don't know if the Bills even offered him. Maybe they did, and he chose the Commanders. Maybe they offered him less, and he chose the Commanders. Maybe they offered him more, and he chose the Commanders. We have no idea if they tried or not, but at the end of the day, they did not get Leo Chenal. Just like they did not get Caden Ellis, who got paid pretty well. 3 years, $33 million contract. Caden Ellis's previous deal was a 3-year, $21.5 million deal. So essentially, Chenal kind of got a little more than Caden Ellis's previous contract, and Caden Ellis got a decent upgrade, going from 3 years, $21.5 million to now 3 years, $33 million. I can understand that being maybe a little rich for the Bills with him, just where they are. I would have paid Caden Ellis that. But again, to each their own. Kobe Bryant, safety from the Seahawks, went to the Bears, 3 years, $40 million. That was towards the low end of what I thought he was going to get, essentially like $13 million a year. There were some reports and projections that were going to push him between like 15 to 20. So I was hoping for him to get between 12 and 15. He got a little over 13. That was my projection and hope for him. It's what he got. We'll see how it actually shakes out, but I would have done that deal. Brian Cook, safety from the Chiefs, went to the Bengals, 3 years, also $40 million. I think a little more like 40.25 or 40.75. But we got confirmation that he's going to get $18 million in year one, which I don't think the Bills were going to do or come anywhere close to. So that could have been a huge deciding factor for him to go to the Bengals. In addition to, he played college ball for the Cincinnati Bearcats, so maybe he just wanted to go back to Cincinnati. Jalen Thompson, Cardinal safety, went to the Cowboys, 3 years, $33 million. The deal was up to $36 million. That's the one that really gets me. Like, you get Jalen Thompson for 3 years and like $11 to $12 million average annual value per. You can break that up really nice. I just thought he would have added so much to this defense. That was one that really got me. I really, really, really wanted Jalen Thompson. But yeah, gone as well. David Onyemata, a little more expensive than I was hoping. He got a 1 year, $10.5 million deal to go to the Jets. He was coming off of a 3 year, $35 million deal. So he came off of a deal where, he was getting just under $12 million per year. And even at age 33, he got a 1 year, $10.5 million deal. Dude is so good. Got paid like it. I was hoping he would be a little more affordable and be at around like $8 to $9 million average annual value, but he ended up coming in at 10.5. That one, again, I understand not paying that a little bit as well, just because of the age and having to address that spot again next year, potentially, if Onyemata goes somewhere else, but someone who I really liked. And then Kyrus Tonga, defensive tackle from the Patriots, also of the Cardinals from the past couple of years, or 2 years ago, with Roy Lopez. Tonga signed a 3 year, $24 million deal with the Chiefs. $14 million guaranteed. more expensive than Roy Lopez, but he offers you a little more juice and pass rush pop, so I get it. I would have done that deal for Tonga. The Roy Lopez one is the one that really gets me. Cardinals got him. He went back to Arizona, 2-year, $11.5 million deal with 7 million guaranteed. I would have taken Roy Lopez at that contract over Dee Alford every single day of the week. No disrespect to Alford. I just think Roy Lopez is better at his job than Dee Alford is at his. And I think a true nose tackle is more important to this defense at this stage. And being able to guarantee that and lock that up before you get to the draft, where there is a lot of, nickel safety hybrids, DBs, big nickels, true nickels in this draft where you can kind of cobble some things together and be fine. The Roy Lopez one, again, is the one that got me the most of it because you could have given Alford's contract to Roy Lopez or signed them both, really. But again, as I stated earlier, maybe Roy Lopez didn't want to come here. Maybe he wanted to go back to Arizona the whole time. Maybe the Bills offered him the same contract. He chose Arizona. They offered him less. He chose Arizona. Maybe they offered him more. Maybe they offered him 3 years, $30 million. And he was like, nope, I just want to go back to Arizona. So we don't know. But yeah, those are a lot of the moves, that I wish they made. I wish they had done that they did not do. And I think a lot of kind of file into that category. I know there's a lot of other guys on the table for folks, guys that they wanted targeted, likes, dislikes, favorites, in a variety of ways. Those were mine in particular, like the guys who I really wanted and I thought would, one, be a scheme fit and tick the box for need, but two, who I also thought would be affordable. And to kind of pat myself on the back a little bit, I nailed essentially all of their contract projections, which annoys me a little more because that puts them even more into the affordability bucket for the Bills. But they didn't get him. But such is life. John Roberts says, DJ Reader, any good for a nose tackle? Yeah, he's in that next tier of guys. Like I really wanted Roy Lopez. I would have taken Tonga next after that. But now if we're going like after that, now it comes down to like, okay, DJ Reader, Andrew Billings, a bunch of guys like that are just kind of your straight role players where there's not much to them aside from that. That's kind of what I'm looking at this point, or maybe even going into the draft. Like Curtis says, so what's the name of the nose from Texas Tech? Can we trade down and get him? Yeah, Lee Hunter from Texas Tech, or Dominique Orange, defensive tackle from Iowa State. Or maybe they get Caden McDonald, defensive tackle from Ohio State at the end of the first round or something like that. But yeah, I'll take DJ Reader. They just need reinforcements at this point, right? That's kind of where I am with safety and defensive tackle and linebacker. All the guys that I wanted, that I was excited for, and not to be like a doomer or anything like that, or a gloomer, but all the guys who I truly wanted for the Bills this offseason, and that I thought would really maximize this defense, they didn't get any of them. And the market is also thin at those spots now. So now it's just at a point where you got to make some moves to just get some reinforcements at some point. So give me Kevin Byard at safety. Give me DJ Reader at defensive tackle. Give me Jermaine Pratt at linebacker, or Shaq Thompson at linebacker. Edges, I don't even want to look at because that's scary and worrisome, and just unfortunate. Or even like kind of like the odd front defensive end guys, the four eyes and the fours. It's just tough. It's really going to have to, they're really going to have to hit this draft if they want this 2026 defense to be good, is kind of where I'm at right now, or to be able to really maximize what Jim Leonard wants to do. And there's a situation right now, again, they're not going to, how the defense is right now is not what it's going to be going forward. They're going to sign some guys. It's just a matter of how good or how exciting they are. And they're going to look to draft some guys again. But I think Jim Leonard, again, I have a ton of faith in him schematically and structurally. I think the ceiling of this defense right now is significantly capped because they don't have the right body types to maximize Leonard's defense. But I do think he is going to do a good job getting this defense up to snuff from a scheme and structure standpoint. And we'll see how everything else goes forward. As of right now, I'm a bit underwhelmed with this Bill start to free agency. Looks like I've been very underwhelmed, I will say, for the entirety of this offseason. I love Jim Leonard. I love that signing. I'm excited to see what the defense looks like schematically under him. I think DJ Moore is now the best wide receiver on the Bills. So again, in a vacuum, cool. You added yourself a receiver that helps your team. Um, I like Connor McGovern. Good to have him back. Stabilize the offense. Cool. That's a win. Dee Alford, fine player. Didn't break the bank. Could you have done something else with that money? Sure. Um, but right now, I'm just a bit underwhelmed overall with this offseason. If not for Jim Leonard signing and coming here as the defensive coordinator, I would be a lot more down on this team, especially on the defensive side. Um, Again, I just don't have a lot of faith in Brandon Beane at this point. I think he's been largely fine, but I don't have a lot of faith in him just because a lot of the moves that I found questionable over the years from a acquisition standpoint were tied to either him and McDermott, and so I don't have a ton of faith in Beane. Brady, I think the jury is out as a head coach, but he doesn't really have. I don't think he has too much power in this situation, and I'm still kind of wary of him at this point. I didn't like him as being the head coaching hire. I found him underwhelming. Um, I had schematic and structural issues with his offense last year and even the year before. But we'll see. Um, Jason says, Ant, what do you need? What do you need to make you feel more at ease on defense? A complimentary safety to pair with Cole Bishop, somebody with range and ball hawking ability who can play in the post, but who can also play in two high structures, has some versatility to their game. Again, it would have been like Kobe Bryant or Jalen Thompson, and then third to Brian Cook. I'll be decently happy if they can get Kevin Byard. But the start on the back end go there. Linebacker's tough for me now in general because there's nobody left on the market really that has the skill set that they need at linebacker opposite of Terrell Bernard, who can also give you the versatility and the hybridized stuff that Chenal brought or Caden Ellis brought, or even to a lower degree like Eric Wilson, the linebacker from Minnesota brought. Things like that. So that's tough. And then edge is rough now as well. Like, are you going to trade for Crosby? Or are you going to try and sign Hendrickson? Like, even there's still kind of questions on both, although Max Crosby would be sick, but you need to add at edge. I would really, really, really like them to get Jacob Martin, the edge from the Washington Commanders last year. I think he'll be cheap and a solid edge 3, edge 4 type of guy to go with Groot, Hoyt, and hopefully a B plus kind of guy in addition to that, so you can round out and have a nice top 4. Maybe Javon Solomon blows up. Who knows? What I need to make me feel more at ease on defense, I think, is very unlikely now. And again, I'm not saying this is like a doomer or a gloomer. I'd be like, everything's screwed. But to answer this question, like fully, like, what do I need to make me feel more at ease on defense? I mentioned some of the pieces individually, but what I really need is not possible now at this point. The safeties that I wanted are gone. The linebackers I wanted are gone. The interior defenders and edge defenders that I wanted in defensive linemen are largely gone. I mean, if they come out tomorrow and they sign Sebastian Joseph Day and Jacob Martin, I will feel significantly better. But holistically, I will not feel at ease. And then we'll see what happens come draft time. Again, I'm not in love with anybody in the draft yet because I haven't finished my evaluations, but we'll see. We'll see. Bum, bum, bum. Dan says, would you trade for Crosby now that the Ravens backed out? Failing his physical is concerning, but maybe we can capitalize and get him for less. Yes, I would trade for Max Crosby. Yes, it depends on what it costs. I don't want to give up 2 firsts because I don't think the Bills are in the financial or draft position to make that trade. I just think they need a lot of help in other areas, and they don't have a lot of S tier guys right now or A tier guys. And if you don't have a lot of S tier, A tier guys, and you also have questions with like your depth and your tier 2 guys, it's tough to make that kind of swing. But if they traded for Max Crosby, I can get past it because I love Max Crosby as a player. He's absolutely sick. He's a monster, and I would have no problem getting Max Crosby. John Roberts says defensive end Howell in the draft. Yeah, Cassius Howell from Texas A&M. I have only watched him in spurts as watching other guys. I like what I see. Shorter arms, which is interesting. Defensive archetype changing now with the Bills defense. A lot of juice, a lot of bend. I'm excited to get to his tape once I get to it. Bills fan 7883 says, I would rather have Vaughn in a draft pick than Crosby. I would absolutely not. I think Vaughn's numbers are super inflated and bloated from last year after I watched him in conjunction with Jacob Martin. And then a draft pick, again, you don't know what you're going to get. Like, you could make the draft pick and he could end up not being an effective NFL player at all. It's just too much of a crapshoot. I would take Max Crosby, who is one of the best defensive players. Like, if that's just the option, if it's Vaughn in a draft pick versus Crosby, even with the cost, I would take Crosby. He's one of the best defensive players in all of football. He's one of the best football players in all of football. I don't think Vaughn is as effective as even his numbers were, I don't want to say mediocre, but kind of pedestrian last year, even though they look decent to some. But I don't think his numbers last year on tape, I don't think the tape backs up what the numbers say. And that coupled with an unknown quantity, no matter who the draft pick is still an unknown. It could be Vaughn and Ruben Bain, and I love Ruben Bain, but Ruben Bain is not a guarantee. So I would take Crosby over Von Miller in a draft pick, but to each their own. Spencer says, I hope Leonard isn't like Fangio, meaning it takes 3 years to make the scheme work. I don't think it'll be like that. He never had the most talent or the top tier talent at Wisconsin, and he'd made his defenses work year after year after year and be some of the best defenses in college football. So I have a lot of faith in Jim Leonard. Question here. Are there safeties or nose tackles in the draft that you would like for the Bills? Oh, again, I'm not finished with either position group right now. Safety, I am intrigued by Emmanuel McNeil-Warren from Toledo. I don't love Dylan Thieneman, but I'm somewhat intrigued by him. I'm out on Genesis Smith, the safety from Arizona, because I think he's allergic to tackling and physicality, unless there's maybe something behind the scenes that I don't know. Great fluidity, great coverage safety, ticks everything you want from a complimentary guy in coverage with Cole Bishop. His tackling is really bad from like a technique, not even just from a technique standpoint, from like a want-to standpoint. As Nicholas says in the comments, Zakee Wheatley, I have not watched Zakee Wheatley yet. I have not watched Ramsey from USC. I've watched Bud Clark a little bit from TCU. I like Bud Clark in what I've seen. I'm only a game and a half through for him, but I like Bud Clark. I'm hopeful it's safety, and so that's where I'm at right now. Nose tackles, I like Lee Hunter from Texas Tech. I like Dominique Orange from Iowa State. I like Cade McDonald from Ohio State. I had the one dude, I forget his name all the time. Other dude from Oklahoma. The defensive tackle from Oklahoma. I forget his name. He's not more of a nose, but I like him as well. I watched him in passing as I was watching other guys. But that's where I'm at right now for nose and safety. I'm not done with either group, so that will come further. Good question, and I appreciate you asking. RJ, are you trolling? RJ says Chanel is gone. Yeah, he's gone. He went to the Commanders. We talked about this throughout the entire episode. Are you trying to troll me right now, RJ? That's mean. You're mean. I don't know what you genuinely didn't know, but yeah, he's gone. He went to the Commanders, 3 years, $24.75 million. Good times. I like these hypotheticals that you guys are sending me in the chat. I like this. Question from Hirachu. What if the Bills do this? Sign Hendrickson, sign Reader, start Williams, and drafted your favorite safety. How would you feel? And obviously sign cheaper depth, not depth. I'd feel fine. I wouldn't love it. I'm okay with Reader. I don't love him. I'm okay with Dorian Williams. I don't love him. Hendrickson, if he stays healthy, I think it'd be sweet. If they drafted my favorite safety, if I have one, once I get there, sure, I'd feel better. I'd feel better. I wouldn't be as happy as I could be, but I'd feel better. RJ, sorry, I had a work call and totally missed that. Why are you taking work calls? Have some priorities. Another follow-up comment here, or question. You said you don't believe they can reach their ceiling under Jim Leonard at this point. I believe that for the 2026 season. I want to say that. If they hit on a safety, nose tackle, and linebacker, how close can they be? That would help a lot. That would help a lot. My issue is I think they need those guys plus other things. But if they were to hit on the right body type and skill set at linebacker, nose, and safety, that would go a significantly long way. Again, if let's put it like this from a perfect perspective, right? Like a 10 out of 10 for them being able to hit their ceiling this year for me would have been if they got Roy Lopez, Sebastian Joseph Day, Boye Mafe, um, or even like Jacob Martin. I'll take at this point because again, I'm not trying to be complete pie in the sky. Leo Chenal or Caden Ellis, and then Kobe Bryant or Jalen Thompson. That to me would have been a 10 out of 10. Um, but getting the right safety, nose, and linebacker could put me at like a 6. Especially if it's like someone on a good deal or it's a good young, like if it's a draft acquisition, that gives you the player plus the good term and cost control, which means next offseason you can go and attack the other stuff. Um, Good question. I like that. Nicholas saying Genesis Smith did have a fractured foot. To be fair, tackling is rough though. You're just hoping you can coach him up to be at least decent tackler in open space. Fair, but the issues that I have with him in tackling, granted, I'm not out there playing with a fractured foot, but his issues in tackling for me very much look like a lack of urgency and or want to than it does like, oh, that guy's banged up. Granted, I'm not out there playing on a fractured foot against D1 level talent like he was, so I'm not trying to pass judgment. And I've never had a foot injury. I've had knee injuries, shoulder injuries, Achilles stuff, back stuff, but I've never had a foot injury of any significance, like a break. I've had like really like busted up toes from getting stepped on and twisting stuff, but I've never had like a fractured foot. So I'm not going to sit there and say I know what it's like to play on a fractured foot, or let alone play at that level in college ball like that. But yeah, I just his tackling scares me significantly. Like Kalen Bullock at USC also scared me. And I know he's been better in the NFL, but a lot of it for Bullock was just like poor tackling. It wasn't like he didn't want to tackle. Genesis Smith has poor tackling, and it also looks like he doesn't want to tackle. And that's what scares me. It looks like he's just not trying to hit anybody. And I don't like that. And I don't think that survives or plays in the NFL. But again, could be the foot, could be something else. I don't know. Fair point. John Roberts says, how do you feel about Dre Greenlaw? I would take him at this point. Again, not my top guy, but I'd take him. Doyle says, why haven't you mentioned Nick Cross? Is he not available? He would be a good fit in Jim Leonard's scheme. I don't think he's a good pairing with Cole Bishop. He's very much a down safety or a box safety. I think Bishop should be more of your down safety or your box safety, and you get more of a single high post safety range, ball hawk based safety to pair with him. Again, if you're using the Bears, for example, right? Kevin Byard, Jaquan Brisker. You need a Kevin Byard. Cole Bishop is the Jaquan Brisker. So I would take Jaquan Brisker, but I don't think he's ideal. I'd take Nick Cross, but I don't think he's ideal. And Cross is even more of a box guy. Cross is like in the box, down safety, blitzing off the edge. I think it's too much same for Bishop, even though Bishop has improved deep, right? As a single high post safety and as like a 2 high safety, he's improved. The further he's gotten from line of scrimmage, I still think he's at his best in and around the line of scrimmage significantly. So I want to leave him there. I don't want to make him play deeper more than he has to. And you would have to do that with Nick Cross. Like if you brought in Nick Cross, Bishop has to be the post safety. Bishop has to be the deep guy because he's better at that than Cross, even though he's still not great at it because both of their skill sets overlap and mirror each other more than they complement each other, if that makes sense. The easiest way to put it would be like if I have a lights out speed receiver, you could get another lights out speed receiver, but maybe it's a little better to have some guy who has some speed, but it's a better route runner, maybe has some size, like have that complementary aspect, especially when you're trying to disguise coverage and what you're trying to do. Oh, this is a good question from Fanatic 7972. What do you guys prefer? Max Crosby for a first rounder and a second? Or do you mean Grenard? If I could get Jonathan Grenard for what I think it would cost Jonathan Grenard, oh yeah, you said, or Grenard, but slightly cheaper, it would be Grenard. I tell you, like what I would have rather done, I would have rather done a second because Jonathan Grenard's contract is very similar to DJ Moore's actually. I would have rather done a second for Jonathan Grenard than I did the second for DJ Moore. I would have done that in a heartbeat. Oh, Nathan. Yeah, mentioning Golday from Cincinnati. I haven't gone through linebackers enough yet, but it is a very good class from what I hear. I'm not done there yet. But yeah, I like this question from Fanatic. Yeah, I would have taken I would do Max Crosby for a first and a second. I would rather do Grenard for cheaper because I think Grenard is sick and is cheaper. Um, yeah, Doyle saying, yeah, I agree with you. I definitely, as the comment says, I definitely think Bishop has more range and has improved drastically from last year. Absolutely. He's still at his best, though, as more of a big nickel, apex monster man in and around the line of scrimmage. Kind of like what he did against Kansas City, right? Those plays that he's making on 3rd and 4th down where he's in and around the line of scrimmage in the box. I want more of that from him. Can he play deep? Sure. But I want him to be in the box more as the down safety. If you get Nick Cross, Bishop's got to play deeper more regularly because Cross has to be the guy in the box because he's more limited the further he gets from the line of scrimmage, more so than Bishop is. Even though Bishop isn't a stud, the further he gets from the line of scrimmage, he's better than Cross. So it's too much overlap for me. Wouldn't hate it, but it's too much overlap for me. Oh, good question here. Speaking of safety, how about that Jalen Kilgore from South Carolina? I like him a lot. I think he's more of a big nickel than a true safety, though. But I wanted to answer that because I like that. Where is this comment from Kel? Nothing to do with free agency or the draft. What does your NFL sourced USA flag football team look like? Oof. Tell me how many it is for I don't know. Is it 5-on-5? Is it 7-on-7? And then I'm going to answer the question. I like this question a lot. This is really fun. And also let me know, or we're talking current NFL players, right? It's not like all-time NFL players list. That would be exciting. I confirmed. Yeah, confirm for me how much what the starting lineup is: 5-on-5, 6-on-6, 7-on-7, and then I'm assuming 7-on-7, like you said, and the current NFL players. Correct? I'm assuming that's what you mean. Current players. Okay. Offensively, can quarterbacks run? I need to know that. If quarterbacks can run, I want Lamar Jackson. If quarterbacks can't run, don't yell at me. I'm going to take Joe Burrow. Receiver. Oh man, 7-on-7. Everybody else, give me Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. This is really hard. Bijan Robinson. Damn, what is that, 4? Okay. You have to have one offensive lineman to snap the ball, one running back, one quarterback. Okay, so here's where we go. Okay, good call. I appreciate you here. Okay, one offensive lineman to snap the ball. Give me Tyler Linderbaum just to snap it, get some athleticism. One running back, give me Bijan. One quarterback. If the quarterback can run past the line of scrimmage and not just scramble, give me Lamar. If he has to stay in the pocket, give me Burrow. One tight end, give me Trey McBride. If we were wearing pads, it's Tucker Kraft. Like one tight end, give me Trey McBride. 3 wide receivers, give me Jefferson, Chase, and oh man. Jefferson, Chase, and CeeDee Lamb. That's what I'm going on offense. Defensively, JSN is a good choice from Nick. Good choice. St. Brown, no. I like him. He's a really good blocker. But if I'm going pure passing aspect, which is essentially what flag is, give me Jefferson, Chase, and CD. Good question. And then defensively, defensively is tough. I don't know what the lineup is defensively, but I'm taking Pat Surtain and I'm taking Derek Stingley, and I'll figure everything else out. That's what I'm doing. Oh, good question. I appreciate you, Cal. Good question. That was fun. You know what else is fun? The best pizza in Buffalo, New York. That is One Pie Pizza. If you live in Buffalo, if you travel to Buffalo, and you haven't gotten One Pie Pizza, you are significantly and sincerely missing out. I don't say that they're the best pizza in Buffalo because they sponsor the show. They sponsor the show because I think they are the best pizza in Buffalo. Homemade sweet sauce pie, cup and char pepperoni, bunch of different toppings. You can get creative and create your own type of pie. They have a bunch of custom stuff. They have standard stuff. It all hits. It's all great. They make their own homemade blue cheese, which is just as good, if not better than the pizza. And that's not a knock on the pizza. That's just how good the blue cheese is. They make good salads. They have some cool dessert options. They have a catering division called Elevated Catering of Buffalo, where you can still get the pizza for events, but they also have great mac and cheese dishes, chicken and rice dishes, salads. Again, everything. It's awesome. Um, and they do a lot of good for the community. I talk about it all the time. They're really good people making really good food. They partner with, with Toys for Tots come holiday season, the Alzheimer's Foundation, the SPCA. They partner with Roswell to try and knock out cancer. They're awesome. They're really kind. They're really generous to the community, the city at large, anything and everything they can do to make people's lives better, aside from just giving them amazing food week in and week out, day in, day out, month in, month out. They also have an awesome breakfast pizza. So again, get yourself some one pie pizza if you have not already. If you think free agency has been exciting and you're pumped, cool, get some pizza to push you further in how excited you are. If you're disappointed with what the Bills have done and you're sad, get yourself some one pie pizza to make you feel better. But whatever you do, however you get one pie, you will not be disappointed. So get yourself some one pie pizza. I'm going to throw up the banner that says Toodles, folks, because we are going to start to wind down and say goodbye. I'm going to grab this comment from John Robert, who says, who will take Reggie Gilliam's place? Maybe Jackson Hawes, or maybe no one. I thought Joe Brady could have used Reggie Gilliam more than he did the past couple of years, which makes me think he's really not going to prioritize fullback like that. So, I think they'll incorporate a tight end into that role or maybe sign a cheap fullback. I don't think they value fullback like I wanted them to, or maybe like other teams are. But good question. Fair question. I hope you folks enjoyed this episode. If you have not already, please, 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 and thank you. I know it's corny. Drop a like on this video. Likes are the lifeblood of these streams. Whether you're watching live now, if you're watching post live later, whatever, however you're consuming this episode on YouTube, please, 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 thank you. Drop a like on this video. Turn on notifications for the Disguise Covers playlist here on YouTube. Subscribe to the Cover One channel and the multitude of content we have coming your way each and every week here on the brand. If you're listening to this show on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, that's cool too and very much appreciated. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Disguise Coverage on whatever podcasting platform or app you are listening to this show on. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, tell your family and friends and loved ones about it. If they're a Bills fan, football fan, whatever have you. If you hated this episode or you hate this show or you hate me, that's cool too. Tell your enemies and try and make them watch this show and ruin their day. I hope you folks enjoy the rest of your Tuesday evening. I hope you folks enjoy the rest of your week. I will see you tomorrow for the Cover One Film Room. If there's anything I didn't get at in this episode, questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, anything, get at me on social, Twitter, pro__ant. That's pro 2_ANT. Get at me on Blue Sky at ProAnt, no underscores there, just PROANT. If you are a Cover One insider, which you should be, get at me in the Discord. DMing me is the best way to go. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your night. Enjoy the rest of your week. I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. I appreciate everyone who joined me live in this episode. Thank you very much to Padden, Jack, and Jason for all of your super chats. And thank you very much to anybody and everybody just for being here and engaging with me. It's awesome. Again, it's awesome to do this show in general, but especially when I go solo and I have no guest, it's awesome to just see how much back and forth there is between everybody in the chat, questions from me, back and forth with me. I think we've done a really good job with the recurring people who come in and tune into this show live of creating a pretty cool atmosphere and environment and ecosystem of conversation and football. So I'm just very thankful for everybody who tuned in live for helping to create that ecosystem, that environment. And if you didn't watch live and you're watching post live or listening or whatever have you, that's awesome too. I appreciate whatever form or fashion your support and episode consumption comes in. And as Ryan says, yeah, Bean is going to troll Ant waiting for the show to end. He might. And if that happens, cool. I will sacrifice that. So I'll go and hopefully he can do something sweet and we'll go from there. Appreciate you folks and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Enjoy the rest of your week. I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. I will see you when I see you. Godspeed. And as always, go Bills.